of August 2024. First item on the agenda, apologies for absence, everyone is here. Second, declarations of interest, are there any? No. Moving on to the third item on the agenda, which is financial performance for year-end 31st of March 2024. And Margaret, you're going to be taking this paper. Thank you, Margaret.
The report today covers the unaudited financial results for 2023-24. So we're comparing the outturn position with the final budgetary control statement that we brought to Cabinet back in March, and just confirming to you the financial results that we emailed out to all the elected members in June. So once again, we demonstrate continued sound financial performance in the year, with the finances being well managed, and at the end of the year we returned an overall general fund surplus of 6.878 million, and that allowed us to put 6.2 million to earmarked reserves to help address some of the future pressures that we know we're going to face. So our non-earmarked general reserve, which is our rainy day fund for the council, has a balance of 7.336 million at 31st of March this year, and that is 2.3% of our total revenue expenditure for a year. So that's within our council's reserve policy, because our policy is to hold a minimum level of around 2% and an upper target of 4%. So with 2.3%, we're within these bounds. So back at period 9, when we give you the March Cabinet report, we were forecast an underspend of 2.6 million. And since then, at the end of the year, it actually improved by just over £4 million. So the reason for that change was largely due to improved income generation. We earned a lot more interest on our balances and investments than we had been forecasting when we set the budget more than a year earlier. And that was because interest rates, which had been forecast to fall sharply during the year, didn't. They stayed at a high level right to the end of the year. And one of the other factors was the actual balances that we had available to invest didn't drop down as quickly as we expected them to. We thought we'd have to use them for capital expenditure, but we actually had quite a slowdown with a lot of slippage in capital expenditure. And these two factors combined so that we actually had over £1 million more of investment income than we had forecast. And that came pretty late in the year, because it was late in the year that we expected the interest rates to fall and the balances to fall, which didn't go as we expected. We also, as is normal for the council, we had a level of staff vacancies and contract savings, particularly declared towards the end of the year, and again that produced another £1 million. And also a bit of slightly better news, the council did not need to use as much of its normal revenue surplus for the year to support our health and social care partnership. We had been forecasting that we might need to use something like over £2.5 million to support the health and care partnership, because they were facing unprecedented pressures, financial pressures. But they actually managed to attract other additional grants, and the council's COVID reserve was able to support them more than we had originally thought. So the balance that the council had to contribute was 1.7 million less than we had been forecasting in the earlier months. Moving away from the general fund, the housing revenue account recorded an operational deficit of £97,000 in the year, but that was a much better result than they had been expecting. They had been expecting to use a lot more of their reserves to top up the 23-24 expenditure, and as I say, 97 million was a much better result. So the other part of the report covers devolved school management funds. Again, during the year, schools can put aside some of their underspends into a pot of devolved school management reserve, and at the end of the year we have listed in the annex what the balances are for each school, and I'm stressing that these are not balances that they have put aside in 1 year. They have built those up over many years, and this is just the current position. They also use them at the head teacher's discretion to meet any needs that the school may have that are not covered by their normal routine budgets. So if there are any questions on that, myself and Mark Ratter will do our best to answer them. But I would ask you to note the satisfactory outturn position for the year, and that when the audit has been completed, which hopefully will be late September, the final accounts will come to a future meeting of the Council along with the Auditor's report.
Thank you very much, Margaret. I'll open it up to questions to members. Councillor Anderson.
Thanks, Leader. Well, firstly, it's great to see actually you hear about so many factors that don't work in our favour, and I think there's quite a few that have in this instance, with utilities and interests and budget that we've not spent. So grateful to actually to hear that, Margaret. I think it's quite positive, and it helps us bolster the reserves that we're going to probably need in the future. We've got a specific question, and you mentioned it towards the end there about the school budgets. So it's something actually that's occurred to me. I haven't spoken to you about it before, Mark. In particular, I've noticed just when you look at the 6% is the figure for the reserves, with the sort of guidance, and a lot of it seems to be nurseries and family centres in particular that have the near the 6%. Above 4, is there particular reasons for that? By its early learning and childcare?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I mean, there'll be variation. I mean, that's what I would note in the report, that I mean, there's 54 almost separate little reserves here when you take the different establishments collectively. They vary quite significantly. Some of them right up to that 6%, and others much lower across the schools and early learning and childcare. In terms of your specific question, there are some that have seen a fairly large increase, relatively speaking. So if I give you perhaps an example, just to bring that to life, Arthurlie Family Centre has gone from sort of just under 13,000 to 54,000. Now, Arthurlie Family Centre is a very large early years centre. It has in excess of 44 staff, and actually that increase is largely due to some challenges around recruitment this year. It represents about 1.5 FTE, which in comparison to their overall staffing is just about 3%. So they struggled to recruit part of the way through the year. They managed to cover it in the short term, partly through management going and covering that, but that wouldn't be something they could do longer term to manage that in the longer term in that sense. And what they're expecting, again, just to stick with that example, is that we expect our early learning and childcare centres to cover maternity costs, and they've got some of those coming up through their reserves rather than us covering it centrally. And they are also trying to use some of that saving for investment around some outdoor structures, classroom for learning in that way, which is part of the purpose of the DSM scheme. So it's kind of varied like that, and there are one or two others where you would be able to pick out some quite big increases relatively speaking, but often again it's down to the individual recruitment issues.
Thanks very much. Well, I had thought possibly the one thing that may have been an issue is recruitment. In terms of that, in terms of operational wise, and obviously early learning is quite very important. The staffing, is a short term issue, and is there, you believe, or is there something we need to focus on or help with recruitment wise?
No, I think we continue to work with our partners in that way. We've had a focus on trying to grow our own as well. We continue to work with the schools to promote early learning and childcare as a career. We have a number of modern apprenticeships, so I think there are a number of routes that we would continue to to expect to come through. It is a challenge broadly across the system in terms of early learning childcare, and I think that's partly to do with the expansion that's taken place in the last number of years. If you think from 2020 and 2021 and the expansion to 1140 hours, it required that greater number of staff within the system to support that. But no, I'm not anticipating that being a longer term impact.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions? I'd just like to add thanks to Margaret and officers for very solid financial management and the ability to build up these earmarked reserves. We know the future does not look so good for us financially, so it's very, very important that we've had that opportunity to build up. So thank you very much for that this year. And so with that, are we happy to approve this paper? Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is item number 4, improvements to education infrastructure at Crookford Primary School and Eastwood High School. And it's Joe's taking this paper. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. The report commencing on page 9 of the combined set of papers provides detail of the proposed infrastructure improvements at Crookford Primary School and Eastwood High School to meet the needs of learners at these establishments due to the schools operating at or above their planning capacities. As per paragraph 14.4 of the Council's financial regulations, capital expenditure must only be incurred if the project has been included in the capital plan or if funding for the project has been made available from other sources, and that any additional grant funding in excess of £50,000 must be reported to Cabinet as part of the capital budget monitoring reports, and those grants that include a discretionary element must be reported as part of a separate report to either Cabinet or other relevant committee. In order to expedite the proposed infrastructure improvements, approval was sought and provided for by the Cabinet's Chair and Vice Chair on the 22nd of July this year. This paper is the first opportunity to report to Cabinet following the summer recess in accordance with paragraph 21.54 of the Council's contract standing orders to seek homologation of that decision. As noted in paragraph 7 of the paper, Crookford Primary School and Eastwood High School are operating with school rolls at or above the maximum school planning capacity at this time. While schools can operate with rolls at or slightly above their capacity through effective timetabling and resource management of teaching and learning spaces, in some cases this can have a detrimental impact on communal areas, such as playground space and catering and dining facilities, which require to be addressed to ensure the appropriate experiences for all the learners. Paragraphs 9 and 10 of the report provide details of the challenges being faced by the schools and the pressures on identified communal areas due to this high level of occupancy. Details of proposed solutions for each school are detailed in paragraphs 13 and 14. In summary, for Crookford Primary School, it's proposed that a hard games court or mugger area be developed within the school grounds, reducing pressure on the multi-purpose dining and gym hall area within the building, and providing usable additional play space for the increased number of children at the school. Whilst the school does sit on a relatively large footprint area, the actual usable play space at the school is limited given the topography of the area. At Eastwood High School, the intention is to increase the dining capacity at the school by creating a covered multi-use dining area with heating and lighting, which is anticipated will increase the dining capacity at the school by around 100 places. Paragraph 8 details the school's current dining capacity and how this compares with other schools across East Renfrewshire. As the proposed plans will support the Council in extending education infrastructure to meet the demand of increasing school rolls due to residential property development in the areas, the capital cost of the proposed works at both facilities can be met entirely from developer contributions. As noted in paragraphs 19, the Education Department has consulted with various Council departments in developing these plans and of course the head teachers of both establishments. And there are no wider implications for the Council as a consequence of this proposal, as noted in paragraphs 20 and 21. Cabinet is therefore asked to note the availability of developer contributions, and capacity pressures faced by both establishments, and to homologate the decision of the 22nd of July to authorise the spend and instruct the Education Department and Property and Technical Services to proceed to tender with these proposals immediately. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Joe. And as the paper refers to, this has been previously agreed by Cabinet members. But if there are any questions, Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I just have a few questions. When were Education first aware of these issues with the communal space, and Eastwood, I understand this has been met by developer contributions. Eastwood is still fairly well built in the last 10 years, so it seems like even in the original plans for Eastwood, dining capacity, did that ever come up? Given expected house building, we knew that 10-15 years would see a substantial growth in East Renfrewshire, so just a bit of information about that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. In terms of the plans and in terms of the projections for Eastwood High School, we anticipated, as is the case at the moment, that there would be no further developments in terms of residential properties within the area. So those initial plans, based on the data that was available back almost a decade ago, in fact in excess of a decade ago, suggested that the capacity and that the dining facilities within the school would be appropriate for the service. And of course the design of the school is a modern one, and that there are other various areas across the school for young people to eat and to spend some time. However, what we have saw over the most recent time is an increase in the number of pupils who require a place at the school. That is in contrary, I suppose, to the expectations, given that all the properties within the area have now been developed. And so whilst we've been keeping a close eye on that, and we have been, as I mentioned earlier as part of the statement, making most effective and efficient use of the building, making the building work hard through effective resource management of physical spaces and staffing. It's now at a particular point in time with the pressure, particularly on the dining experience for young people, is the one which has been detrimentally affected by the numbers in the pupils. So whilst we can cater for the number of children, it's that dining experience of being able to sit down, have a lunch, sit with your friends and have that experience at the moment which has really been significantly impacted. In terms of Crookford Primary School, yeah, that's something we've been looking at for some time. You're aware that there was consideration in previous plans for an extension to the learning and teaching spaces. That's been proposed that we hold on that at the moment to continue to monitor the intake there over the future years. We anticipate that given the numbers we see, that may no longer be required. And had that been known from the outset, we probably would have looked at the learning and outdoor usable space at that particular point in time. But this is supposed to be an adjustment in terms of those plans given the wider considerations of the extensions at the school. Thank you.
I've just got one other question. When do we expect both projects to be complete? I know on the Eastwood side it says 6 to 8 weeks. When just the timings would be helpful.
Yes, thank you. On that, we're still working with colleagues in property and technical services to develop that whole process. For the Eastwood site, there will be a requirement for a planning application to be submitted. That will lengthen the process, and we will obviously try to expedite this as quickly as we possibly can do. Early indications at this particular point in time, of course we've not been out to tender on these contracts yet, so we'll have to go through that entire process. But early indications would be that, unfortunately or fortunately for Crookford Primary School, we would look to probably to have that mugger in place by the end of the calendar year. For Eastwood and dining area, that would probably play over into the next calendar year, but of course we're looking to expedite that as soon as we possibly can for the benefit of the school community. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Anderson?
Well, just thank you for the paper, and obviously, as you said, you know, myself and the leader had visibility of what we had to discuss, you know, during the recess. But looking forward as well, Joe, to what we talked about in terms of the pipeline for the future, because all of our schools will have pressures of some sort, and developer contributions, anything we can do to help the schools cope. Obviously, we're more than happy to, you know, to get things in advance, so that we can actually, you know, be proactive about it and have give the schools as much as possible what they need to help them cope. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks.
Great. So if there are no other comments, are we happy to agree this report? Agreed? Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 5, East Renfrewshire Council City Deal Update 2024. And Michaela is going to take this paper. Thank you, Michaela.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. This report is to update on the progress of the City Deal programme. Starting with Oars Road. The Oars Road project has passed a number of key milestones which are detailed in the report. There are some delays to the programme arising from the find of a historic waterworks which had to be investigated, as well as some challenging ground conditions and also poor weather conditions. There are delays also to the movement of existing utilities. There will therefore be a delay to the reopening of the road, and we are working closely with the project managers and contractors to understand the full conditions on site and a revised programme to completion. At Balgrave Station and at Barhead South, Transport Scotland is working towards a decision following its investment decision-making board on the 7th of August. We have supplied additional information as requested by the board and are expecting their decision within the next 2 weeks. To stay on programme, the full business case has been submitted to the Glasgow City Region Chief Executives Group, noting that the submission is subject to the delegated authority requested today. It is anticipated that this will be approved on the 5th of September, allowing the release of the next tranche of funding. The first trains are expected to stop in early 2026. The Country Park Visitor Facilities. This project has a budget of 2.8 million and consultants are currently working on a plan for us to bring play and education spaces and services including toilets. The outline business case should be submitted for approval on the 13th of September. This is the final project in the current City Deal programme, although members will be aware there's a potential for one additional project to be added in the future. The Cabinet is asked to note the progress of the 3 ongoing projects, agree to delegate authority to the Director of Environment for the submission of 2 business cases to the Glasgow City Region PMO, and note that there will be further updates on progress in due course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michaela. Councillor Devlin.
Thanks, Peter. Just a question on the railway station. And this has been about for probably it's just been very congested, so maybe bear with me. You know, this has been about for about 20 years. And you know, every year they get a date. You know, it's going to be 2016, 2018, 2020. We're guaranteed it to go back done in 2024. You know, it's never materialised in 2024. Now it's put back to 2025. The point I'm making, surely some sort of contract signed, you know, to say that this is going to be completed on a certain date. You know, just can't go on. We, you know, as elected, and we tell people, when's the train station going to be built? Guaranteed 2024. It doesn't materialise. The main point for me is we've got 38 properties up there with no access to buses, no access to trains. You know, and that's going to be another year that they have no access to public transport. But what I find is probably annoying is that the bus terminus is 200 yards away, and you know, why have we never asked them as a council to move the bus terminus up to Balbury Stone Road to allow these people to get public transport? I mean, I think it's about time we actually say to SVT, we need this train station. We've got new development going up there, it's probably going to be starting next year. It's 1,000 houses, we've got 40 people up there without any transport. We need a concrete date that this is going in.
Okay, so there's a few things there. So I'll start with the timescale, Councillor Devlin. So the information, the IDM, which is the decision-making body of Transport Scotland, are likely to make a decision on funding the project within the next 2 weeks. Assuming that they make that decision in our favour, and we have no reason at this point to believe that they won't, then there's already a contractor that's been selected by Network Rail, and so that construction process is then expected to start. And the construction process is then timetabled so that it is intended that the construction will be complete in the spring of 2026, after which the station will be commissioned and trains will start to run. So we are expecting at this point to see trains stopping at the station in 2026. I know that that is later than you had expected, but that is that is a timetable that we're fairly confident of at this point. In relation to the buses, we have spoken to SVT about extending the bus service. I think the difficulty that we experience is often the way with these things is that they don't want to do that until the station's open. So notwithstanding the fact that it's left the households that are there without a bus service, we do have high hopes, and we are building a turnaround point for buses and we do have high hopes of the bus service being extended once the station's open and they consider it to be financially viable to run it the extra distance. So all I can say is that progress is being made towards these things being completed, and we hope for all that to be up and running in 2026.
I just find it incredible throughout the years, there's still not been anything legally binding to say that, the money's here, we're going to build it a certain date. We'll wait till 20 years now, we'll find out we're getting money.
I understand the point that you're making. I think that the way these processes work, they don't make a financial commitment until a certain point, and we believe we're at that point and are anticipating the financial commitment, and therefore the ability to let the contract and actually build it at this point in time. Recognise the frustration that you have about the delays that there have been up to this point, but we are hopefully poised just about to go over the other side. Hopefully.
Councillor Anderson.
Can I explain about it's actually interesting the importance of the station was something that struck me, because the accessibility from East Renfrewshire, people who've never been will be able to access this great new facility that we have up there, a great new area, an opportunity for people from use and as well. It's just going to be very important to have. In terms of buses, we had this issue with Green Hill as well, where with a developer contribution for £300,000 to initiate 3 years of bus service there. We had issues, we had to put out to tender twice. But is that facility not available because the houses are already there? And I don't know if they're building the same way they built them at Maiden Hill. We can get bus service. Is there funds available?
Not in this circumstance, no. There are no developer contributions towards a bus service at this site. The economics, perhaps, of the development of the two sites is quite different. So there was a viability case that was made in relation to this site in order to sort of bring the station and the bus terminus and so on. And that would have made it difficult for us to ask for the level of developer contributions that we had the potential to ask for at Maiden Hill, because it potentially would have affected the viability of the development. However, as Councillor Devlin has rightly pointed out, there's a bus service that runs fairly near to the site, and we have built or will be building as part of the project a bus terminus and turnaround point. So we have every hope and expectation that the bus service will be extended up to the station, and that because of the passengers coming off the trains and so on, that should be financially viable. It shouldn't need to be supported in the way that a bus service at Maiden Hill has had to be supported to get it started. So I can't give you a guarantee at this point, but there is a hope and expectation that the bus service will be extended to serve the station. It would make sense.
Great, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Michaela. I think you're seeing a lot of anticipation and desire for this project to be completed as quickly as possible. I think we're all very excited about it, and best of luck in getting it on time for spring 2026. And we will minute that, won't we? Yeah. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Could I ask about Ors Road? I know you did refer to the delays on that. Obviously, this is of concern to lots of residents that have been impacted by the closure of Ors Road. I wonder if you could give us a little bit more colour on and give comfort to Cabinet and the residents more widely that we are doing everything we can to project manage this. And when do we think we will have a time for completion?
The concern is understandable and recognised, and we can only sort of from this point, try and get things moving as quickly as possible. So, as I detailed in my report, and it's not unusual on a large construction site to find ground conditions that weren't exactly as expected, or to experience weather conditions that are quite extreme and therefore cause delays. You know, we were unlucky with the waterworks find and the fact that has had to be excavated and understood before we could proceed and so on. So there are a number of different things that have happened, all of which we know will impact upon the programme. But we're at a point in all of that where, if you like, we know what the problems are. And we're putting a huge amount of pressure onto our project managers, who then go on to the contractors, to get that into a position where we know what the future programme is. What I don't want to do today, Councillor O'Donnell, is to speculate, because the chances are that if I give you my hunch, it will be wrong and it will be recorded in the minutes. And then we'll be back here in a few weeks' time saying, oops, sorry, we were wrong. So what I would ask you to do is to bear with us for a little longer whilst the contractors and the project managers bottom out you know, the issues that we've encountered around ground conditions and so on, so that once they're fully understood, we can come back and give you a proper timetable and programme for the road to be reopened. So apologies for that not being a concrete answer that I know that you and the residents of East Renfrewshire are looking for, but I don't think it's a good idea right at this point to give you a speculative answer. We will let you know as soon as we understand the full extent of what's happened and how that impacts on the programme and how we can get the road completed as quickly as possible.
Michaela, thanks for that answer, and we look forward to having that discussion once you're in a position of really pinning it all down. Councillor Devlin.
Just to come in the George Road, I mean, the contract, right, was, sorry,
the contract was a city deal contract. Am I right in saying that? Yeah. And the contract's given from city deal to the contractors, whoever they were. Why, as a council, did we have no input to this contract? Basically what I'm saying, we're building a road and nobody from roads, I believe, was involved in the contract. Basically overseeing, you know, the work that's already been done. If the work's up to a certain standard, is everything going fine, blah, blah, blah. Why did that not happen?
This is one of the City Deal funded projects, and they are done through a project management basis. So our roads colleagues were aware of the project and did have sight of the plans and programme before the project started. However, they have quite a lot of commitments in terms of the things that they're doing already, and they wouldn't have had the capacity to be able to run this project as well. So the way that the programme has been set up, we have an NEC contract, we have a project manager who are professional project managers called Stantec, who are managing that project on our behalf, and then they liaise with the contractors. So we have got recognised experts in the field and ready to be working to deliver the project. So I don't think that you should be unduly concerned, Councillor Devlin, about the way that process unfolds. And it's a very large project, very large contract, and something that we thought would be best managed through this method. It would have put a very large degree of pressure onto our roads colleagues to try and manage a project of that size and scale with all the other things that they have to do as well.
Yeah, just my closing question, is there going to be extra cost to the council with this project?
There is a contingency built into every construction project. At the moment, we obviously, as would always be the case, hope that the delays that we've encountered or the issues that we've encountered will fall within the size and scope of the contingency. I couldn't confirm that at this point, but that's where we would hope to end up.
That's fine.
Thanks very much, Michaela. Any other questions on this? So are we happy to agree the recommendations in this report? Agreed? Thank you very much. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is item number 6, publication of local heat and energy efficiency strategy. And who's taking it? And Eric is taking this paper. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. The purpose of the report is to seek approval to publish East Renfrewshire's first local heat and energy efficiency strategy. This has been in preparation for some time, and members will be familiar with the content as it was subject of a previous paper brought to Cabinet earlier this year. Paragraph 3 notes that preparation of a local heat and energy efficiency strategy is a statutory requirement under the Local Heat and Energy Efficiency Strategy Scotland Order 2022. The requirement extends to production of an accompanying delivery plan every 5 years. Local heat and energy efficiency strategies, or LHES as we've been calling them, are long-term plans to improve energy efficiency and transition away from burning fossil fuels for heating. So in effect, it's a longer-term plan for the removal of gas boilers. The successful implementation of LHES is a key component of the Council's wider Net Zero Action Plan and will directly contribute to fulfilling the Council's climate change duties. Paragraph 7 notes that the draft LHES was agreed by Cabinet on the 22nd of February and since then has been subject to a 6-week consultation. Feedback from the consultation has been incorporated and a delivery plan developed. Paragraphs 9 and 10 highlight the scale of the challenge, noting that in the next 20 years, nearly all out of approximately 42,000 properties in the area would require improvements of some description. The cost to the Council and private property owners is potentially enormous, and there is a significant logistical challenge in terms of delivery with current shortages in both skills and supply chain capacity. As such, the LHES can be considered the start line of a marathon and not a sprint. A full draft is provided as an appendix to this report. It is a detailed and technical document which has been informed by a comprehensive review of all built stock within East Renfrewshire area, with a view to identifying priorities to deliver on 4 main outcomes as shown at paragraph 11. These remain unchanged from the earlier draft that you've seen. They are: homes and buildings are as energy efficient as possible. Heat solutions are delivered to contribute to net zero targets and tackle fuel poverty. That the Council secures investment and grant funding to deliver what is needed, and that we support property owners to improve heating solutions. Using the data on buildings with these outcomes in mind, the first LHES has identified 6 areas of priority, and these are detailed at paragraph 12. They are: we will analyse potential heat network zones and ground source heat pumps investigated for socially rented properties. We will increase the levels of cavity wall insulation in the private sector and improving the uptake of the Scottish Government's Energy Efficiency Scotland area-based scheme money and other grant funding available to homeowners. The delivery of improvement within our own estate to reduce emissions through investments in energy efficiency measures and zero carbon heating systems. And finally, the LHES identifies the role that solar PV can play in reducing emissions. Key points raised from the consultation, which is based on 72 responses in total, are noted at paragraph 13 and can be summarised as individuals were seeking greater clarity and assistance with funding and information provision related to energy efficiency improvements in their homes, with some expressing concerns or a lack of confidence in contractors' ability to undertake the necessary works. More details of the public consultation, along with feedback on behalf of the Scottish Government to outline the methodology and latest progress in heat network zoning, have been reflected in the appendices to the main document. Paragraph 15 notes the inclusion now of a 5-year delivery plan which sets out short to medium-term actions. These are found in the main document at page 43, which is page 71 in the papers, and cover actions related to governance on LHES, how we will drive actions forward and keep on track, stakeholder engagement and digital, how we will use digital data sets and mapping to assist with future planning and identify opportunities. There are also a number of actions under each of the priority areas. It is also noted that the actions currently reflected are mainly attributable to the Council, but it is anticipated that as LHEAS evolves, other stakeholders will be increasingly involved. Indeed, a key action in the coming year is to promote LHEAS and secure strategic support from key partners. To conclude, I would reiterate the production of an LHEAS is a statutory requirement and would recommend the Cabinet note the contents of the LHEAS and provide approval to publish. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Erica. Any questions? Councillor Pragnell.
Thank you. I should say I welcome the report. I know certainly this is a starting point and it's now a legal requirement. I know certainly in my ward, particularly at community councils in Netherley and Stamperland, there is concern. A lot of the people live in the sandstone housing that is pre-1919, and many of them probably do have the money to actually insulate their homes to a sufficient standard, but the issue is finding contractors who understand this type of property. So going forward, it's whatever we can do in the future to assist these households. Most of these homes are privately owned, but they just want a wee bit of clarity. And because technology is moving so quickly in the insulation market, I think it's just a bit of reassurance that yes, they're doing the right thing by seeking to get better insulation, but these houses, certainly I know we've got a lot of stock in East Renfrewshire and Giffnock as well due to the quarries, Netherley and Clarkston, but just to reassure people that we are looking at this, and even if it is a private property, we will hopefully be able in the future to provide support. So is there any more you can add to that? Certainly something that's coming up time and time again.
Yes, I think we recognise through the consultation that that was a key concern of residents. With that in mind, we've also recognised our very clear role as a trusted advisor in that. So we are currently developing plans to provide more confidence to residents in the area that are keen to make home improvements and have potentially the wherewithal to do so. There has been a lot of sort of misinformation, I think, as well, or poor contractors in the past, and it has probably halted progress. So I do see that that we have a very important role to play in that respect. One of the things you mentioned, the sandstone properties in Netherley in particular, and one of the things that we would be keen to do is to build up a bank of case studies, for example, where we have had success in, archetypal property types, so that we can share that information with residents who live in the same kinds of properties. So that is something that we're looking to do over the next 12 months, is to build up those case studies in different property types, and hopefully that will give confidence. The other thing that I would add to that is that we're working very closely with our colleagues in the Money Advice and Rights team around how to access funding. We're also working with our trading standards colleagues around the trusted traders schemes, so we will continue to do that and build up that confidence and a communications plan around that to the public. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Erica. Thanks for this report. As you said, this is the start of a journey rather than an end point. I welcome the consultation and the response in there, and it very much reflects what Councillor Pragnell was saying in terms of uncertainty of residents of dipping their toes into these sort of pretty significant changes. So welcome that, and also the addition of the delivery plan. And again, that will evolve over time, but it's good to see that that's now included. Huge amount of work has gone into this over quite a long period of time, so thanks to everyone that's contributed to this very important inventory of really where we are in East Renfrewshire, so thank you very much for that. So with that, are we happy to recommend the contents of this paper? Thank you very much. Agreed. And moving on to the next item on the agenda, it's item number 7, UK Shared Prosperity Fund 22-25, request for approval of additional activity, and it's Michael that's taking this. Thank you, Michael.
Morning, thanks, Councillor O'Donnell. In terms of the report, it's a request for approval of additional activity from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The purpose of this report is to homologate the previous approval of 4 projects and seek approval for 1 additional project under the programme, which covers the programme period of 2022-25. As noted in the report, there is a current underspend of £160,000, and the request for additional support is for those new projects that were discussed with the convener and the leader in June 2024 for prior approval to allow them to commence immediately. As noted in the report, one of the projects, the Giffnock Business Improvement Music Festival, has now been withdrawn, and the report to Cabinet will allow homologation of the decision to approve the 3 projects in June, as noted in the report. The Giffnock Music Festival is looking to fund, to support an alternative project, which is the Christmas Village project, as outlined in the report as well, and a further project, Business Gateway East Renfrewshire, which is a specialist procurement support to local businesses, is also put forward for approval as well. In terms of recommendations, the Cabinet is asked to note the underspends across the programme, homologate the decision to approve the 4 additional projects as outlined in this report, note the withdrawal of 1 project and approve the request for the additional new projects as outlined in the report, and to delegate to the Director of Environment to approve any new proposal requests that can be accommodated due to any future underspends or adjustments. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael. Any questions on this paper? As you said, this has been discussed in advance through recess, so are we happy to homologate this and recommend this paper? So, agreed. Thank you very much, Michael. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is item number 8, Neilson Learning Campus variation to contract. And who's taking this one? It's Mark Rogers.
Thank you. This relates to 2 issues, essentially, which is the requirement to be able to carry out demolition works at Neilston campus, and also in relation to survey work that was required to be carried out in connection with those works and the appointment of Curry and Brown to deal with that. This is a request to homologate a decision that was taken during recess by yourself, Councillor O'Donnell, and I believe Councillor Anderson. And the report is largely self-explanatory. There is a contingency budget that is available to meet these costs. The demolition was not originally allowed for in the original contract, but to give some reassurance, there's £1.7 million worth of contingency available for the totality of the Neilson Learning Campus project. After homologation, hopefully, of these decisions that were taken during recess, there will still be £1.4 million remaining in the contingency budget, and so there are no financial impacts to the Council at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Councillor Anderson, did you want to make any comments? Oh, sorry, it was Councillor Pragnell that wanted to make a comment. Sorry.
Thank you. It's reassuring that we do have the funds to cover this, but why wasn't the demolition of St Thomas's originally, the finances originally allocated for? It seems like a kind of self-explanatory thing that a school, we're creating a new campus, so the previous school would be demolished. Why wasn't that put in the initial plans?
I believe that the decision around not including St Thomas's was connected to the Neilston Leisure Centre proposals, as that it is one of the sites that was under consideration for the new centre. So I think the decision on what we would do to the school will be made as part of the leisure centre, but obviously we've pushed that back in the programme, in the capital programme for another year, and then the school became vacant and we had to deal with it immediately, which was why then it was included within this contract.
Any other questions? Thanks to officers for getting ahead of the game on the demolition. There has been concerns about this raised by residents in Neilson in case it becomes a health and safety hazard, so I'm glad that that's in progress. And in terms of progress, where are we? It has actually started, hasn't it?
The demolition is complete. Yeah. That's St Thomas's, yeah. It's complete and the site is secure, I'm told.
Perfect, that's great news. I'm very welcome to people of Neilson. Obviously, the next question at a later stage is what do we do with that site, which we perhaps will pick up later today. So if everyone is happy with the recommendations of this paper, agreed? Agreed. So can we move on to the final item on the agenda, which is number 9, minute of joint consultative committee, first year, held on 16th of May 2024, and this is for noting. Are we happy to note this paper? Agreed. So with that is the end of Cabinet meeting for today, and thank you all for your contributions today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.